It's Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center, and Cam Robinson is the Director of Content for Elite Prospects. He's had a very big week breaking some huge stories in junior hockey. We're going to get to that in a moment, but we start, as always, with the Vancouver Canucks. First of all, how are we doing? Nice to see you. You well?
Doing well, yeah, thanks. Good to see you boys, too,
Yeah. Demco, when do you think it would be fair to expect him to be back at the Thatcher Demco level that we all know and love?
This one's tricky, right? This one's tricky for the amount of time he's been off, just the uniqueness of the injury, how, all the reports, it's like he's just got to figure it out. He's going to have to deal with it. And we're not young men anymore. We got to figure things out and deal with injuries all the time here, even just get to the studio. So it's not easy for us. It's not going to be easy for Thatcher either. I think they're going to have to give him a long leash, give him a long runway to get back up to form. I'd love to say it would be around March, maybe early April, just in time for the playoffs. But it could be next season that we see him really elevating back into that, top 3, top 5 goaltender in the world. We hope that he can get back to. But, enough runway. I think he should be clicking at top speed or near that by playoff time anyway.
We were saying yesterday, this is a 50-50 at best sharing of the workload, isn't it, between these two? We don't go to the default position of 2/3 starts to Demko, 1/3 to Lankinen right from the get-go, do we?
No, not right off the hop, I wouldn't imagine. Yeah. I think you're right. I think we'll see a nice split for a little while, but there's a reason that he is your guy too, right? And as things push into February and March, and I think that as long as he's playing well, I think that the lion's share will start to creep his way.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a still long road to hoe here for the Vancouver Canucks, so we'll see what decisions they make. Quinn Hughes departs the game on the weekend. He's gone for a bit, and if ever there needs to be a submission of video for the Hart Trophy, it might just be the position of video
those 13 minutes
where he's not playing.
Those 13 minutes, put it in the Louvre.
That might be the candidacy right there. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You never cheer for a guy coming back with a bubble so hard. Hey, is that they are a completely different team without Quinn Hughes. And I mean, by definition, the Hart Trophy is for the MVP, most valuable to his team. And can you really make an argument that any other player is as valuable to the Canucks or to their team as Quinn Hughes is? I mean, Kaprizov is on pace for 60-plus goals and 130-plus points. Nate Mack's going to be in there and Kucherov, and they're going to have these big, gaudy point totals. McDavid's always in the mix. And for some reason, voters seem to lean towards Cale Makar as the top defender and even as a Hart Trophy candidate. I was pulling up some odds there the other day, and I think Hughes is between plus 10,000 and plus 15,000 to win the Hart. Like, he's not even among the top 10 or top 15 players in consideration on betting.
But I think that's probably right. If you're picking odds on a winner, I don't think he's going to win it, but he should.
But he should, right? And he plays on the West Coast, so half the guys voting don't even see him, unless he's out east for a stretch and or at the All-Star game or something like that. We'll see him. They'll see him at the Four Nations and be like, "Oh, this kid is pretty good, actually." But no, everybody who watches Quinn Hughes on a nightly basis understands that he is the top defenseman in the world and that he is a viable Hart Trophy candidate, whether or not he actually gets to be in that realm at the end of the season.
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 3 variables. And if he checks all 3 boxes, you tell me whether you think he's actually got a chance. Number 1, the Vancouver Canucks make the playoffs and are a good team. Maybe they don't get to Pacific Division winners and 109 points, but something approximating that. Number 2, he leads the defenseman scoring race. He scores more than Cale Makar. And then, fellas, number 3, he gets to 20 goals this year. It was 17 last year. If he does all 3 of those things, do we give him a chance for the Hart?
I don't think the voters are going there. I really don't think there's much chance for it, period.
But he won a Norris last year. Like, people are more aware of him. Cam,
I personally think if he does all those things, if he gets the 20 goals, and and he leads all defensemen, and he leads the Canucks. I think you might be satisfied to see him end up like 5th or 6th in voting, something like that. I think even with everything going on, being a defenseman, being out west, all that stuff, if he ended up like 5th or 6th in Hart Trophy voting,
that'd be a victory. Yeah.
Right. That you take that as a victory, even though, right, it's hard to do for him, especially just up against all those big name forwards, right? It's really, really difficult. Like, when was the last time we saw Hart? Was it Pronger in like 99 or 2000 or whenever it was? It's
right. When offensive numbers were down, right? So it was. You're right. It's hard to argue against guys with 60 goals, guys with over 125. Anytime you got guys over 125 points, like, that's going to grab attention, right? So. Yeah.
And Kirill the Thrill is running it up with Minnesota too, right? Like, he is extremely valuable to the Wild too, and he's the leader at this point too.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always going to be a great field. It's always going to be a great field. I think that we understand. But boy, by the strict definition of the award, a judge most valuable to his team. I don't know how you can not look at Quinn Hughes. Let's stay on defense for a second, because we were noting the fine point totals of Kirill Kudryavtsev and EPD, Elias Pettersson, down on the farm. Blake and I were wondering yesterday, is it possible that one of these two guys could be a this-year solution for the Vancouver? We know they got holes on defense. We discuss it every week, Cam. Is it possible one of those guys could be a this-year solution for the Canucks?
I mean, anything is possible, right? But you can't look at your this roster and be like, we are in our contention window. We're looking to go and push hard, and we're going to feel like a 20-year-old pro rookie here in North America is our solution on the blue line. Not to say Kudryavtsev couldn't come up and make a lot of smart plays, play 15, 16 minutes a night without hurting you, but is not hurting you the same as really moving the needle the way you want to do it. It's every week I say it. They got to do something. And eventually we're going to get to the point where they will do something. And I strongly believe that. But I think that in a perfect world, you leave those two down there. Give them a couple coffees if you want, with injuries, right? Let them develop a bit.
If the end goal for this team was making the playoffs, then I'm more inclined to say yes, because then you just got to get through 82 regular season games. But neither one of those two guys is helping you come playoff time, right?
Yeah. Pettersson could help you bang, like he'd be that physical guy that if you run into some injuries, he comes in, he can handle it physically in the playoffs, but they're not needle movers at this point.
Okay, does the same logic hold for Jonathan Lekramaki then?
No.
He's a lightweight, young player. Could you see him helping them down the stretch and playing in tough March games, playing in tough April games? Is it same or different?
It's different, I would say, because he has such a unique skill set, right? That offense pays the bills, and this kid, he can write checks. And so that shot, it's real, it's NHL level, it's high end. And so, yes, it will be difficult for him when the going gets tough down the stretch and into the playoffs if he was on the big club to find that space. But shooters get hot too, right? And so if you can, obviously we see what he's doing in the American League right now. Like he's scoring goals at a torrid pace. He's shooting the puck. The volume is more impressive to me than even the goals sometimes. Like 4.5 a game, tops in the AHL on a per game basis. He is firing the puck more than anybody down there. He's among U21 players, he's right behind Frankie Nazar as most impactful. So he's right on the cusp. And if you can catch him when he's confident and he's on a heater and you can get him rolling a little bit at the NHL, playing in the top 6, then yes, he could be someone that I think could help this team down the stretch into the playoffs. But with a short leash, right? As soon as the wheels come off that heater, he's not going to be effective, and then you got to reassess.
Brock Boeser. We're approaching tonight. They play game 27, a third of the way through the season. As we know, he hasn't played them all. He'll play his 20th tonight, but it's 16 points in 19 games. It's 7 goals, so it's still tracking as to be a pretty good season for Boeser. When do you suspect the Canucks are going to want to start extension talks with him? And do you think, how much do you think he's helping his cause with the season that he's having?
He's not hurting his cause, like you said, he had the injury there. He's been missing JT, right? They played so many minutes together, nearly all their minutes at 5-on-5 last year together. The shot rate is a little bit down. The goals are a little bit down. He's still clicking, in the high teens, which it just illustrates just how deadly of a finisher he can be. And when he gets around the net, he's really good around those high percentage areas. Still pacing for 30 goals and, close to 70 points. I'm sure he was hoping to click at another 40 goal pace or hit 40, and then the number starts with an 8. I'm sure Vancouver's not mad about that because, maybe they get him locked up at, maybe it's 7x7, maybe it's 7.5 times 6, something like that. But I do think if they haven't already just had those preliminary talks, I'm sure they'll be coming very quickly because something like this, it doesn't happen overnight. Even though I think that both player and team want this relationship to continue, it's still going to be a bit of a battle because this is his payday, right? This is the retirement deal in all likelihood.
Yep. And of course, we saw what they did with Pettersson last year too, right? They wanted cost certainty. They wanted to know what Petey was going to cost this year going forward before the deadline. So you sort of wonder whether that is a soft deadline in Boeser extension talks.
We've talked about Boeser blowing our socks off when he first arrived with his shot and how he's developed. And in a lot of ways, with the better shooters arriving, Miller, Pettersson, putting your finger on exactly what makes Brock Boeser an effective scorer is a little bit more of a difficult task. Do you think that certainly the Canucks could play this angle, but do you think that Brock Boeser realizes that the fit here is pretty good for him? Like, I don't know how plug and play Brock Boeser is on 31 other teams in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I think that there's a good handful of teams that would be happy to go after him in free agency and slide him onto their first line or first power play unit. But you're right, this is a very good fit, and he has good chemistry with JT. Him and Petey are good buddies, and Quinn, and it's that core is we'll say that they're not all tight, but he seems to be tight with most of them. And so I do think the relationship is there, but you're right? Like when he came into the league, he was looking like he was going to be a pure sniper, someone who could beat you from out high, beat you from anywhere. Even if the goalie's got a clear angle on it, he was still going to go bar down on him. And now it's more about using his intelligence, and he is a really smart hockey player and one of those guys that the puck follows him around, and he can score in a number of ways. And he's added that playmaking to his game. He's added a little bit more jam, never the fleetest of foot, but the speed is fine, and he can handle things defensively. So it's just more of a collection of some of his parts. But he's not a burner. He's on the wing. He is somewhat reliant on playing with good players to put up good points. And so that's just going to kind of tick that number down a little bit. And at the end of the day, if it is, a 7-year deal for sub $50 million, I think that's okay. I think that's okay for him too, that shouldn't be the end of the world. And if it was me, if I was in his shoes, that wouldn't be enough for me to kick it down the road and see what free agency had to offer. I'd probably just still sign it up.
Okay, Cam, let's get to the big news that you broke this week. First with Michael Misa, who, as we've talked about in the past, has a chance to go first overall in the 2025 NHL entry draft, a high-scoring forward with Saginaw of the OHL, but then a little closer to home with Gavin McKenna, who everyone anticipates will be the first pick in the 2026 NHL entry draft. We know that the tectonic plates under junior hockey and hockey development are shifting, and the NCAA allowing these CHL players to come now, even after they've dressed for major junior teams. Tell us what you reported this week and tell us what you think is coming here with these two superstar prospects.
Yeah, and I'll just preface this by saying nothing is done until it is absolutely done, right? And so this is such a unique situation that we have these players, they're playing for their club teams. It's not like they're in the USHL or playing prep school in the States, and it's like, hey, I'm proud to announce my commitment to Boston College or whatever. And everybody knows that, yes, you're 17, you're going to school next year. The plan has been for them to stay with their CHL clubs next season as well, in all likelihood. Even for Michael Misa, it's unlikely that he's going to be playing his draft plus one in the NHL. But with this opening, with that NIL money, that name, image, likeness money that's opened up in college hockey, is that for someone like Gavin McKenna, and I wasn't reporting that he's going to school. I was talking about what limitations are there, what would stop him from going, and what are the opportunities for him. And for him, even as a Canadian working on a student visa, there's ways for him to make up to $1 million playing college hockey next season as a 17, turning 18-year-old before he even moves into the NHL. It's an opportunity to have state-of-the-art training facilities, strength and conditioning. Yes, you're playing a less pro-style schedule, but you're in the gym more. You get the college atmosphere, right? You have an experience that not every hockey player gets to, that goes that major junior route, is that, and once you miss it, it's gone. And then you're off to the NHL. So for Misa, I was told from someone who is very connected to something like this, I wouldn't put something out there unless I had strong reassurances that this is something that is on the way to being done, but is that with Boston University is that they have a framework in place, what that NIL money would look like, how a transition could potentially look like. But again, he's playing for Saginaw. He is a member of the Saginaw Spirit right now, and it's a very difficult situation for everybody to kind of navigate. And so I don't expect these things to get announced until seasons are over. Same with McKenna. It's not like he can go and just head over to Michigan and take a tour of the campus, right? Everybody would be all over him. It'd be major news. And he plays on a good Medicine Hat Tiger squad that, is hoping to push for Memorial Cup. They asked for a bid to host it next year. They didn't get it. I think the CHL might have screwed that up a little bit. If they gave it to Medicine Hat, maybe that would have been enough to keep McKenna there.
Yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't have been. Maybe it wouldn't have been though either, right? Because he's going to put up 125 points this year. Where's the challenge for him next year?
So we're a long way away from the best Canadian junior players playing at the NCAA, but that now seems under threat with this name, image, and likeness.
The fact that it's taken months for this to even tempt these top players shows you that there's going to be an effect, isn't there?
Oh, without question. And it just makes a lot of sense, especially for these guys, whether they're draft eligible like Gavin McKenna. And I, in my article there yesterday, I talked about, speaking with Byron Ritchie, his agent, he finished school a year early. And kids don't do that unless they, have maybe some plans or want to keep some doors open for them too, right? But, these guys that are draft eligible, that finish their schooling, or the ones that are just high draft picks that aren't quite ready for the NHL, they can't go to the AHL, right? Going to college, getting paid big money, more than they would probably make in their entry-level contract anyways, and getting a new experience, a new challenge. They're playing against guys 22, 23 years old. It's a new opportunity. It's a new measuring stick for them. And then boom, now they can step over and they can play in the NHL and they're draft +2, and they're probably better prepared for it physically and mentally. So, and financially. So it is, there's a lot of boxes checked for players to move that way.
And just so everybody understands how much this NIL money is changing college athletics, there are 130 or so member institutions playing Division I football. The transfer portal opened this week, and some 650 kids were in it within hours, about 5 per team. Now, not all of those kids are just upset about playing time or don't like coach or, want to continue their studies elsewhere. A large majority of them understand if I switch schools, there are boosters, there are donors there that are financing a slush fund that I can take some money out of. And look, football's a different animal. It's the biggest dog on the block when you're talking NCAAs. But of course, that money trickles down to the right guard and the nose tackle. Whereas in hockey, it's going to be pretty concentrated on these top kids like McKenna and like Misa. Boy, this is going to be quite a story to follow, Cam. Great reporting. Thank you for this, and we'll catch up next Tuesday.
Appreciate it, fellas. Talk soon.